Yeah. So I was telling you about this name. So if even if the question paper, that is case note, doesn't have a salutation, it is your duty to put a Mr. in front of it just for the sake of formality. Then we have age 62. Remember, I will tell you the location of the age 62 later. I'm going to teach you how to write this, don't worry. Admission date 13th October 2009, discharge date 24th October 2009. What is it? How many days? 13 to the 26. What is it? 11 days of hospitalization, isn't it? Then we have diagnosis attempted suicide overdose of Mogodol. Mogodol means it must be some poison, I guess. It cannot be anything else. Past medical history, heavy smoker, 40 cigarettes per day, bronchitis, multiple episodes, underweight, 66 kg, BMI 18, psoriasis. Then we have social history, retired 2 years ago, bookkeeper with Holden Car Company, lives with wife Joanne and adult son in housing, trust mansionette. Mention it in Elizabeth. That's the name of the place, obviously. Wife works at Kohl's, son unemployed, two married daughters, and five grandchildren. Regular social drinker, depression related to gambling addiction. Began gambling 2 years ago. The thing that you need to note here is that he retired 2 years ago and he started gambling 2 years ago. That means you need to show a bit of cohesion. Cohesion means the ability of yours to understand the note. Your ability to understand the note means, so when we write the letter we have to make sure that we relate this. That means he began gambling after his retirement 2 years ago as a bookkeeper. You can write in that form. Yeah, one sec. All right, and then has lost a lot of money, including super annuation fund, and is in debt. Wife and family previously unaware of addiction, very angry but also upset about suicide attempt. Patient remorseful and ashamed, wants to overcome addiction, used to be a keen lawn bowls player, has lost friends as a result of gambling. Is the story. So this is the story of this is the social story of the patient. Then we go towards the nursing management. Weak and depressed, antidepressant prescribed, Lovan 200 gram, blood pressure 130 by 95, diabetes assisted, diabetes education regarding diet and oral medication. Wheelchair use from 2010, that means September, October 20th. After that, the patient has started using wheelchair. Psoriasis on torso and scalp, all these things we have there. Poor appetite, physically unfit, discharge plan. That means whoever is going to read the letter, that person is going to carry out certain things for us. That's the reason why the letter is being written. So encouragement to maintain antidepressant medication routine as the SSRI is established. That means until the SSRI shows good effect, the antidepressant medication should be continued. You don't get confused, don't get intimidated with these abbreviated forms like SSRI. However, it is just copy paste. You do not need to expand. Mrs. Wilson will help with supervision, monthly follow up appointment with psychologist Dr. Brian Murphy. Same hospital where we are at the moment. So you are writing the letter, Supriya. So this is the place where the patient is going to come back again for the psychology consultations, a social work appointment to be made for gambling addiction, strong encouragement and assistance to join gambling addiction action group. Sounds weird. This thing is a support group. People who are addicted to certain things, they go to support groups in foreign countries, and then what you do is you share your experience and to the other people in the same group who are also addicted to some sort of gambling. Then we have a contact with quitline needs to be encouraged. Quitline means obviously to quit certain things, I guess. Wheelchair required for another week. Frame advice after this. Maintain psoriasis treatment. Maintenance of low GI diet for diabetes. Involvement of wife necessary. Encouragement in social sporting activities. Example, lawn bowls. Now look at the writing task at the bottom. It says, using the information in the notes, write a letter to the social worker, Miss Jennifer Adams at the Elizabeth Community Health Center. And this is the address. So it needs urgent attention, right? That urgency should not be forgotten. It's an important thing. Whenever you see urgency, it shouldn't be forgotten. Now, I'll give you a minute. Just read it casually. I want you to read the social history, and then I'll scroll it down. Yeah, I'll give you a minute. Check it out. All right, now check out this one, nursing management, and then discharge plan. We've already read this. Yeah, just check out the discharge plan once. Now, the question, how do you begin the letter? That is the question. And let me tell you uh, that most frequently, a nurse always writes to a nurse. Remember, a nurse always writes to a nurse. What does that mean? Sorry, just a second.
So, excuse
Check
me,
it out.
sir. Do I have to speak in between, like whenever you ask me
No,
some
no, no, you don't
question?
need to speak.
Okay.
Just check it out.
Yes, sir. I read it.
Okay, so this is the thing, most of the time I told you that the letter is always written to nurse. So a community nurse writes to, I don't know, a specialist nurse, or maybe a specialist nurse from one department writes to a community nurse, or maybe a nurse from a home care writes to a community nurse, or some other nurses somewhere. That's the most frequently done thing. Now, sometimes what happens is that, nurses also write to social workers. Nurses also write to physiotherapists. Nurses also write to director of certain places. Nurses also write to refuge centers. So let us just categorize the letter in two sections. I mean, the recipient of the letter into two sections. Number one is going to be a medical, and number two is going to be non-medical. Yeah, medical versus non-medical. So we categorize medical versus non-medical. So when you write from a nurse to nurse, that becomes a medical. When you sometimes you let me also tell you that you need to also write to you also need to write to doctors. Very rarely, but yes, it exists, right? This letter, the unique thing about this letter is that look at this. Using the information in the notes, write a letter to the social worker, Miss Jennifer Adams. So what you should know here is that the social worker, they are layman's. That means you need to choose the information from the note depending on the reader of the letter. So if the reader is a non-medical person, then there's no point talking about the dosage of certain medication. In the discharge plan, of course, we have that
Mm.
encouragement to maintain. That means we are encouraging the reader of the letter to maintain compliance of medication, right? So let's just choose. So just check it out one more time. Let us just rewind, and then we will choose what to do, what not to do. So here, age is given there. 11 days of
Mm.
hospitalization. Patient admitted for suicide, right? So let me also tell you one more thing that's very, very important. So most commonly, the candidates, they write who was diagnosed with attempted suicide, who overdosed Mogodol. So the patient didn't overdose. The patient was admitted in the hospital. So what did we do? We must have done something, right? If the
Mm.
patient comes with a stomach ache, we do something in response. If the patient has a headache, we do something in response again. So if a patient attempted suicide with an overdose of certain things, certain chemical or substance, then again we do something. So in the introduction of the letter, instead of writing who was diagnosed with attempted suicide, we was managed after an attempted suicide with overdose of Mogodol is going to be a better option. Like for example, if somebody had a fracture, so we don't write in the letter that okay, the patient was diagnosed with fracture. What we actually did was, after the diagnosis of fracture, we stabilized the fracture, we fixed the fracture, we started the treatment of fracture, we stabilized the fracture. So we should change the words when the patient is admitted. So obviously, if something happens, we write what we did. We managed somebody with certain things. That is the way you write. Remember. Now, in the past medical history, of course, we have heavy smoker, bronchitis, underweight, doesn't matter. Now we have in social history, we have all these things. Very important. We're writing to a social worker. Obviously, it's important to write social history. But let me tell you something. 2 married daughters and 5 grandchildren is not going to do anything. I mean,
Yes.
wife works at Kohl's, or wife works in KFC, or wife works in Apple. It doesn't matter. Okay, son unemployed, maybe you can say maybe it adds pressure to the patient. Maybe he's depressed about that, so you can maybe mention, yeah, that okay, son is unemployed, and then 2 married daughters and 5 grandchildren. Married daughters already. So if I were to write this letter, I'm not going to include it, right?
Yes.
Because telling the reader of the letter that he has 2 married daughters and has 5 grandchildren doesn't do anything. Yeah. So regular social drinker, of course, you can write depression, everything is here. So we need to choose information from here with respect to the receiver of the letter, whoever is the reader. That what's her name? Forgot here. Jennifer Adams. So we're going to choose the information from the perspective of the reader. Now, patient is remorseful, ashamed, wants to overcome addiction, is a lone ball player, lost friends because of gambling. Of course, maybe all these things have led to the suicide, right? Suicidal attempt. So yeah, these are important. Then, so okay, nursing management. Now, if you were writing to, let's say, a nurse, community nurse, then you would have talked about the blood pressure. You would have talked about the Lovan 200 gram. So when you're writing to a social worker, we do not need to be very concerned about the low Vance dosage and all these things. We can just mention that, that we just need to mention that the compliance of a certain medication prescribed needs to be established. That's it. Yeah, diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, what does it do? Let's see. It also depends on what we ask in the task. You see, Jennifer Adams at requesting follow-up care. Okay, so maybe we can write, maybe he's under medication for type 2 diabetes, diabetic education regarding diet and oral medication. Okay, it's there. So we can just mention that he has diabetes. Then wheelchair from this date, and then after that, we are suggesting mm, a frame, isn't it? Now, psoriasis on torso and scalp, and there's this kind of cream, and there's a shampoo. I mean, what does the social worker have to do with this? The most important concern at the moment is that the patient is recovering from an overdose of a substance. So we're not going to include these things. And a discharge plan. There's one rule, discharge plan is always one step before the closing of a letter.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Just because before closing of a letter. So we don't need to worry about where do we write the discharge plan, but we need to think, what do we do with the others? So let us talk about the introduction of the letter. In the introductions, let's see, we write like this. There are many ways in which introduction can be written. So Mr. Wilson, the most common one and the popular one in OET, I am writing to refer Mr. Wilson, yeah, a 62-year-old man who was managed for an attempted suicide following an overdose to Mogoro and needs your urgent management. Yeah. We can also include what you've written at the bottom. You see that when you go to the writing task, you will find that it says follow-up care. You can also use follow-up care there at the introduction. Hey, by the way, you can also write needs your follow-up care also is fine. See, follow-up care is also a management. Hitting somebody with a hammer on the head is also management. Giving medication to a patient is also management. So management is a broad term that you can always include in the introduction of the letter. I chose this in the introduction. And where will I put the follow-up care? I'll put it at the bottom, at the closing of the letter. Yeah. So options is that you can write something general in the intro and then write something specific at the bottom. That's the closing of the letter. What I'm doing at the moment, what I'm putting on the screen at the moment is called the introduction of the letter. So in the introduction of the letter, I have chosen to use a broad term. I can also use something specific that is given in the in the writing task. So it is up to me. Now there are many ways in which this letter can be written. There are simple ways as well. So Mr. Wilson, yeah, needs Mr. Wilson a Mr. Wilson, a 62-year old man needs, or you can not put that as well. We can put it in a social history. Mr. Wilson, who is a 62-year-old man, lives with his wife. You can also write like that. So Mr. Wilson needs your urgent attention after he was ADMITT admitted. Sorry, ADMITT admitted at Hamro Hospital. What's the name of our hospital? Something level something was there. You can write by yourself. Hospital for 11 days following an attempted suicide. See, no matter how you write, no matter what you write, there are two things that's needed to be mentioned in the introduction of the letter. That is going to be what is going on with the patient, what do you want from the reader. Remember and memorize this. What is going on with the patient, what do you want from the reader. What is going on with the patient, what do you want from the reader. As long as, no matter which sentence structure you choose, no matter what language you choose, as long as these two information is included in the introduction of the letter, you are safe. So let me point it out for you guys. Let me point it out here. So who is managed for attempted suicide? This is what is going on with the patient. And what do you want from the reader? Urgent management here. Yeah. So what do you want from the reader? Urgent attention. What is going on with the patient? Has attempted suicide, right? So these two important things have to be included in the introduction of the letter. Now, how do we choose what to do in the second paragraph? So let's imagine this is A. Let's imagine this is A and this is B. And here we've written B first, and then we have later written A. So either you expand A in the second paragraph or you expand B in the second paragraph. Or from here, same thing. Either you expand A in the second paragraph or you expand B in the second paragraph. So you should ask yourself a question what to do. So out of everything that's given here, so he has attempted a suicide. How do you know he has attempted suicide? You question yourself. Okay, how do I know that I have attempted suicide? We check the note, and whichever paragraph tells that he had attempted suicide, because of certain problem, you mentioned that paragraph, you expand that paragraph. Actually, you're supposed to transform, but at least in the beginning you should learn how to expand it. So here B is urgent management. So why urgent management is needed? Why? Well, because of course when you find the look for the answer. Why urgent? When you ask yourself a question, okay, urgent management is needed. So why urgent management is needed? When you ask that question, again it goes to the social history. So all the circumstances that have led to suicide is going to come in the second paragraph because the reader of the letter is a social worker. Again, the same thing. Urgent attention. Why? Because he's ashamed, he's remorseful, he's sad, and all those things. So you should always determine the second paragraph with respect to the first paragraph. So whatever you've written in the first paragraph, you basically expand that in the second paragraph. You prove it. Remember, that's the simplest way. Uh, just copy this. Just a second. Let me have a sip of water. All right, so You got it, right? So introduction is like this. Now, this is not a very simple letter, to be honest. When you write from a nurse to a nurse, most of the things you can include because the person who is the receiver of the letter is also a nursing professional. So you can give details of Lovan, you can give blood pressure, you can give everything. But when you write to somebody who's a non-medical professional, the way you choose the language, the way you select information changes. That's called genre and style. That's a criteria in OET writing. That means you're changing the language of the letter from the perspective of the reader, right? So remember, like, let me give you an example. If you talk, if as a doctor, if I talk to you and I say, okay, give Flexon OD, are you going to ask me what is the meaning of OD? No,
No,
because you're a nurse. You understand the language. But if I tell my mother, for example, no, my mother is also a nurse. Sorry. Let's say somebody else, like let's say somebody like a grandpa in my family, and I say, okay, take the Flexon OD. Maybe he's going to think something else. I mean, he's going to think maybe, I don't know. He's not going to understand. He's going to think old Darbar, maybe the whiskey. Who knows? So depending on who is receiving the letter, you'll change the language. So you're talking to the grandpa, you're going to say, take it one time before sleeping. But if I talk to a nurse, I'm going to simply say, okay, OD, give it OD, or take this, give this patient that, right? Why? Because the way a medical professional talks to a medical professional is understood very easily. But when you write to somebody who is a layman, you need to simplify that. And same thing applies in speaking as well. There's a criteria called appropriateness of language. That means the ability of yours to simplify a medical condition to certain somebody, right? So usually when you do in speaking, it's going to be a patient, but here in writing, so this person who's receiving the letter, Jennifer Adams, is a social worker. So you have to simplify things from the perspective of the social worker. So now I'm erasing this. So what do we include in the letter? So here we have nursing management. There's always a dilemma in the examination or when you are even practicing. What do I make? Which one do I make as a second paragraph? Now, discharge plan, obviously, we talked about it. The polar end of the intro, we have an introduction, we have a closing. Just before closing, there is going to be a discharge plan. So, what are we going to do with? So, obviously, social worker, all the circumstances that has led to suicide is going to be the second paragraph. Easy peasy, right? So we're going to make up a story here. So very simple. We're going to tell what led to suicide and what are the circumstances of the suicide. How is the patient currently after suicide and how is the family reacting after suicide? We're going to write that. After that, we have nursing management. We can tell a little bit. We don't care about the shampoo, which shampoo he uses, which shampoo he doesn't use. We can talk that he's physically unfit. We can talk he has a poor appetite. We can talk about diabetic education, but don't go into so much detail. The blood pressure was this much, low van 200 grams. We can say that okay, antidepressant medication low van should be encouraged to be taken regularly. Like there's a compliance. Now discharge plan already has its part. So the first paragraph's relationship with the second paragraph is called a purpose of a letter. Most of the important things that you have to tell the reader of the letter is there in the first and second paragraph. Now, that is called a purpose. So you need to wisely choose which one is going to be your second paragraph, and that is awarded as point. Purpose is one of the criteria against which you are marked in the OET examination, the writing, right? So see, so this obviously there's no doubt this is going to be a second paragraph. This one's going to be a third, nursing management, but in a trimmed form, very short, and then discharge plan is there as well. Now, let me tell you that, see, social worker appointment to be made for gambling addiction. So we need the social worker appointment um, to be made for, we are already writing to a social worker. So we do not need to tell that, okay, social workers interventions are needed. We can say that, okay, we need a appointment for the addiction therapy or something like that. So discharge plan is going to be pretty long, and then nursing management is going to be pretty short, and then this one's going to be detailed, right? Now, I call this micromanagement of paragraph. Just check it out one more time. What do I mean by that? Just check this thing one more time. I call it micromanagement paragraph. So most of the candidates, what do they do is they write like this. From here, they go here, and then you go here, and they go here. They write in the same flow. This is the most commonly made mistake in OET writing. The way it is given, you just keep expanding. You just keep expanding, and you just keep expanding. This is a classic blunder. You'll never get more than C plus in this if you do like this. This is the common. What is actually expected from you is to transform. That means, as per your understanding of this story, as per the understanding of this story, how are you going to tell the receiver of the letter the story? It's like you cook chicken, I cook chicken, and the taste is going to be quite different, although the ingredient is same. So that taste that we get is awarded. I hope I have made myself clear. So how are you going to present? So this one, after this, just check this one more time. Discharge plan. I'll give you like a few seconds. Yeah. So again, like I told you, the mistake here is going to be, forming sentence like this in the same direction. Right? Now let me tell you a story. If you're ready. Okay. Forget whatever I've told you so far. Let's go to a story. Wait, let me find an empty space here. And listen to whatever I'm saying carefully. It is so important. Yeah. Imagine this is a part of a sea. This is a sea. Oh, it's not going to be red, obviously. It's going to be some other color. Let's say, here you go, sea. Samundra. It's a part of the sea. And we have so much water in the sea. We have so much water everywhere. There's water, 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 pani. Obviously, in the sea, what do we have? Water. Now the problem is that the reader of the letter somehow had a shipwreck and is stuck in a boat, like in a Titanic. That's the type. The reader of the letter is here, stuck. It's been 4 days that the reader of the letter is stuck in the middle of the sea. She doesn't have any food. She hasn't drank fresh water. She doesn't have sunscreen. Her skin has all burned because of the sun, and it's a terrible situation. One day, the reader of the letter, Jennifer Adams. She sees a plane flying nearby, a very small plane near the island. Those small planes, one-seater, two-seater planes. Like this. So showing the movies. You can already see that I can draw so beautifully. But understand that it is a plane. So the pilot says, it's already evening. I'm going to go to the nearest island, and then I'm going to refill, and then I'll come back and I'll rescue you because it's dark. It's difficult to land. There's no light on the plane. Yeah, not all the planes have light. So what this guy, the pilot, does is he throws three boxes. One box is blue. Another box is let's imagine green, and then the third type of box that's purple. You're able to see this beautiful drawing, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
let's make this box a bit bigger. So just for our understanding. Now, what happened is that all these boxes, let's imagine this box has noodles, has fresh water, has sunscreen, all the important things that's needed, like a bed sheet or a blanket even to cover. The other the other box, this one has like let's imagine hammer or I don't know, like a chisel or something to fight, spear to fight. Yeah. And then the third one, this one has all the beautiful things like Gucci bags and has, I don't know, beautiful suits and shoes and everything in this bag. Now, what happens is that, since this is a food, like let's imagine it's a, not hypothetical, just it's not practical, but try to understand that this one unfortunately reaches at the towards the bottom, the food, because it was thrown first, because it's so heavy. Just a second. Sorry. And this another one is somewhere here. This with a hammer and all these things. And the one with the Gucci is just near the boat. Now tell me, considering the circumstance of the reader of the letter, which one does the reader need at the moment? Gucci bag
No,
or the shoes, all the expensive shoes? No,
no,
right?
sir.
So what happened?
Foods.
The reader of the letter has to go down and then bring the box and come up.
Mm,
White, just imagine this is a letter. This is your page. Imagine this is the page of a notebook. Why to make the receiver of the letter go down and then come up to get the information? Give the needed information on the surface so that the reader of the letter gets it immediately and includes, I mean, you includes in the care. You get the point. Now, what I mean by this one is that the common tendency to write is that going with the flow in which the question paper has been arranged. That is the biggest mistake I've told you. Now, out of all the social history that you see in front of yourself, which one do you think is should be at the surface? So, not only we should choose which paragraph is going to go to the surface to the second paragraph, we also choose out of a particular paragraph which one is going to go on the surface. So that's called micromanagement of paragraph. It's very important to understand this. Very, very important. Now, if I were to write this letter, how will I write this? I'll just say that after his retirement, he began gambling, got involved in drinking, finished all his money, isn't it? So look at this. One information is at the top. After that, going to connect it with this one. Is it somewhere first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh line? Then I'm going to connect this one with this. Then he lost his friends of gambling. So I'm going to connect this one with this one with this one, and then we're going to go to this one. And I'm going to bring this to the surface because this is the food. It's like chow chow. I need it at the top. Noodles. Then what I'm going to do is after that, keep checking what I'm saying here. After that, I'm going to talk about lives with wife Joanne, here and there in Elizabeth. Wife, son is unemployed. I don't care about the daughters. Then I'm going to connect that wife and family unhappy about the suicidal attempt. Then I'm going to connect. Then I'm going to connect patient, remorseful, ashamed, wants to overcome the addiction. Yeah. He also has depression related to gambling. Somewhere I'm going to connect like and social work, social drinker, and this also I'm going to connect somewhere. So you get the point. I'm not going to go in the same flow in which the question paper has been arranged. I'm in the case note. I'm going to choose which one goes to the surface and which one goes to the bottom. I hope I'm making myself very clear. So any letter, the assessors, they don't expect you to just go in the same flow. They expect to use your acumen and choose the important parts at the surface. I don't mean that wife and family, their upset is not an important thing. It is an important thing, but it doesn't deserve the surface of a particular paragraph. Whatever I'm telling you at the moment, just think about it carefully because you're going to do this letter. You're going to write it. Now, they said retired 2 years ago, so you have to add he in front of it. No surprise with that, right? Same thing. Same thing. Go to other paragraphs. Go to other paragraphs. See what happens. Nursing management. First of all, I don't care about the shampoo. I don't care about the torso scalp. I don't wheelchair. Okay, we can mention that he's on a wheelchair. Okay, diabetes education. Give us a basically this nursing management is going to be a very small paragraph, maybe 2 sentences at the most. So you can choose. We actually the weak and depressed part you can also write it in the other part here in this one, or but you can segregate as well. Make sure that the inner body paragraph doesn't exist. Sorry, no, it doesn't exceed 70 words. Right. So I'm going to choose weak and depressed, antidepressant Lovan. I'm not going to write it here because in the discharge plan also it says that antidepressant medication routine should be uh, frequent or regular. Then I can put this at the bottom as well. Why to write Lovan at the two places? So what candidates make mistake is that in the nursing management they're going to talk about Lovan, and in the discharge plan they're going to talk about the antidepressant medication. Why to talk in two places when you can actually put it in one sentence and show the association to the reader of the letter? You get the point. So I'm not going to keep Lovan there. I'm not even going to talk about the antidepressant prescribed because we are asking in discharge plan for the reader to make sure the patient adheres to the medication. So you get the point. Then blood pressure, there's no value. What does a social worker do with the blood pressure? Okay, you can say that diabetes and medication on medication. That's it. Wheelchair, okay. I don't care about the shampoo. Has poor appetite, physically unfit. Okay, fine. Now, frame advised after maintaining psoriasis treatment. Frame. So you see here, wheelchair required for another week. Frame advised after maintaining psoriasis. Now, why to write it in two different places when you can put that currently the patient is using wheelchair but has been suggested to use frame? You can put it in one sentence. So this is what you need to do. You have to find links. You need to find what you want to tell the reader and how. Why to write two things in two different paragraphs when you can put it in one place associated as a complex sentence? That's what the assessors want from you, right? So what I'm encouraging you guys is to not go with the flow in which the letter goes, but instead you're going to choose and see which one can be associated with which one. Yeah, you get the idea, right? Now, finished. That's what the letter is. So, introduction, I've already given you an example. Social history, you're going to form it by yourself, right? After that, we have a discharge plan. You're going to form the sentence. You think which one's important, you can write. And management paragraph also you can segregate. You can put a specific or a separate nursing management paragraph, or you can merge it with some other paragraphs as well. Because you see, most of the thing we're not going to mention here. So we can give two statements out of things from here. Now, what we talk about is what do we do with the closing? Let me tell you the popular formats of closing. Opening was in light. It was I'm writing for popular for closing. It'll be in light of the above. In light of the above. Remember, in the introduction, I chose management. If I chose management at the top, then choose something specific at the bottom. Kindly follow up or kindly provide. Care to Mr. Wilson. So in the introduction, if I wrote follow-up care, then in the closing, you can write management. vice versa. You understand? Basically, closing also is similar to what you write in the intro, but the thing is that make sure that you don't use the same language, just to show off that you have skills to express yourselves in different ways. So in intro, if you write follow-up care, write management at the bottom. If you write management at the top, then write follow-up care at the bottom, and vice versa. Okay. So this is the common one. In light of the above, considering the above, or simply kindly, I would appreciate. You can use any of these forms that I've just mentioned to close the letter. And after closing the letter, obviously, yours sincerely, yours faithfully. Since the reader of the reader's name is known, we write sincerely. If the reader's name was unknown, then we write faithfully, right? If it was just the social worker, then it would have been faithfully. And if Miss Jennifer Adams is going to be sincerely, I hope you know the difference. So, so whatever I've told so far, you're going to use that logic and you're going to write a letter and show it to me for editing. Yeah, that's going to be homework. But for now, we had discussed a little bit of speaking yesterday, and I want to see how you have memorized all the things that I've told yesterday. Yeah, let's go to the speaking part. I'll send you this later. You need to download Telegram, Supriya. We do everything from Telegram. I'll send you the link in a while.
Okay, sir.